Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site in Times Square, we have Kinahan. He's back with us, Chief Market Strategist over at TD Ameritrade with November retail trading trends and what stocks were hot on Black Friday. it's great to have you with us. As always, IMX. Now, this is an impressive number, the highest level since November 2018.
Right.
Still a little bit below historical average, but positive nonetheless.
Positive nonetheless. Investors engaging a little bit more with the market. And on the buy side, I guess I'd say Disney. You know, with Frozen 2 coming out, et cetera, and all the toys that go with it, et cetera. People really wanted to own Disney stock, and it had a very nice month and continues to do well. Also, an interesting one, McDonald's on their sell-off after earnings. People wanted to own that. They continue to want Microsoft. And Marvell Technology, actually associated with Microsoft, and some of the technology Microsoft is now using, Marvell getting that nice contract last month. So those are some of the ones that people wanted to buy last month. What I really found more interesting, to be honest with you, Jill, when I first looked at the report, what immediately drew my attention was the sell side. Even though people are taking more exposure, the stocks they sold, Bank of America, Citigroup, Caterpillar, Tesla, GE, all had one thing in common. They were either all at 52-week highs or, in the case of Tesla, the highest level we've seen since January, so multi-month highs. So I found it really interesting how clients are managing money in this rally, selling stocks, you know, near 52-week highs, and then repurposing that money on stocks, as I said, like McDonald's, that just got sold off.
And Millennials, you know what? It's still no surprise there. They are looking towards space stocks, they're looking to cannabis, but really their other net buys and sells weren't much different than the traditional buys and sells.
No, and the space one I found really interesting. Let's face it, it truly is the only way to truly play the direct, you know, human space adventure, so to speak, is through that stock. So again, you know, when you look at millennials, people often criticize some of the things they buy, and I always say, you know, if we're going to talk about long-term investments, and millennials are looking out and saying cannabis, space travel. In my lifetime, this is going to be very interesting, so why not, you know, start investing in some of it?
I can't wait till we start seeing the articles with enough with bashing millennials. There are some great ideas out there.
Crazy.
And they are longer-term investors, and they longer-term have great ideas, but I think this, you know, okay, boomer versus millennial thing, it's just the narrative's getting old.
It's gotten really old. I must say I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of millennials on my team.
Yeah.
They work just as hard or harder than anybody. I'm so sick of hearing it. You know, if you say millennials aren't working hard, maybe you're just not doing a great job of screening people, because the ones we found, God bless them, they worked their butts off.
Yeah, I can certainly agree with you there. All right, Black Friday for the 5th year in a row. Roku, Baba, Amazon, kind of not too much of a surprise considering the day it lands.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of interesting to see, you know, Black Friday is more normally associated with the brick and mortar stores, yet you see 3 truly online companies being the #1 buys that day. I don't know if it's in anticipation of the following Monday or whatever, but I thought that was also a very, very interesting statistic. And so it makes me wonder, is this going to truly be a tough brick and mortar versus online Christmas sale season, so to speak, or holiday sale season? So we'll have to, that's the trend I see that could develop from what I saw in those buys that day.
All right, now December 2019 looks very, very different than the one that we had last year. Do you think we'll kind of end the month on this smooth sailing note and 2020 could be more volatile? Or?
Well, December 15th obviously is going to be a big day for all of us with the proposed tariffs. I think one of the reasons perhaps people took a little more exposure is maybe they just don't quite believe that it's going to happen. They may get a kick the can one more time, giving the timing right before the holidays, going into an election year, et cetera. So we'll see if that happens. I do expect 2020 to be a bit more volatile. You know, what is funny though is as we finish 19 here, Jill, you and I talking all the time, it's so funny that everything we talk about in the market, even though it's had a phenomenal year, people constantly look to the negative. We're back to within spitting distance of all-time highs again, and yet all we hear about is the negative about this market and how it can't last, et cetera. It's been an incredible market, but 2020, you have an election year coming up, most importantly. We do have more tariff things to happen. We still have the fallout from Brexit, what will or what won't happen there, which is a major unknown. So I would expect to see that, you know, the volatility this year has been a bit more elevated. I would expect volatility to be a bit more elevated again next year.
It just seems like there's a lot of variables that are out there, and I can't remember, I mean, even going through the financial crisis, I can't remember as many variables out there as there is now.
Well, I think part of it too, in the financial crisis, all the variables we went through were kind of correlated.
Right.
now they're not really 100% correlated in terms of all those variables, and I think that's what makes it very, very difficult to get your arms around what these really are. And so, you know, we'll see what happens. And don't forget, you know, we have right now a OPEC meeting going on. Crude oil hasn't really figured into there, so we'll have to see if the price of crude oil figures into anything as we go forward. It took a downward move today, small, based on those Chinese numbers last night, but in terms of imports. But again, it always seems like there's these things that pop up every couple of years that you haven't talked about, that being one that we just haven't spoken about in about a year. So I'm keeping my eye on that as we head to 2020 also.
Right. I can't believe I'm saying this already, but Happy New Year to you. And
Happy New Year. Always great to see you, Jill.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
JJ. And thank you for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.